Welcome back. So we talked about the example using engine size, manufacturer, and miles per gallon. Miles per gallon is actually the response using engine size and manufacturers as predictors. And we talked about the interpretations of this. We said that these dummy variable created actually means that on average, GM cars, the difference between GM cars and the base class, which is Ford cars, is actually negative, meaning that on average, GM cars have fewer miles per gallon than Ford cars, and it's about 1.66. One common question in this is what if you wanted to select another different base level? So in this case, we actually selected. So let's go back to the example here. Let's say that what if you wanted to create a dummy variable for Ford as opposed to GM? So what if you wanted to do this instead? Remember, in this particular case, GM was created the dummy variable because Ford was the first level under the levels function. Okay, so the next question then is, what if I wanted to select a different base level? Okay, so the way that this would work is that I would have to re-level these. I would have to have, when I run the levels function, I would need GM to be first, so that when we pass it to the LM function, then that creates the regression with GM to be selected as the first or the base level. This is called, again, the base level if it is selected as the first. Okay, so we can use the re-level function. Okay, the re-level function needs two things. It needs re-level. Let's see if I can spell it. It needs the variable, and then it needs something called a reference. And the reference has to be in quotes. This is where we would write what the base level is. I'm writing here base, but this has to be exactly as the whatever the base level is. This would have to be written with capital letters and all. So let me give you an example. In this case, the car data is a very small data set. That's the reason we chose it. The two levels are GM or Ford. So if I wanted to select GM as the base, I would have to write the REF parameter under the re-level function and then write GM there. If I wanted to keep Ford, I would just write Ford there. If you had another variables that contain many different levels, then you would write exactly what you want the base to be. So let's take a look at the example. I want to use the re-level function, re-level, and I want to use the car data manufacturer, and that's a variable that I want to change. And I would set my reference level to be now GM. What that would do, again, is select this to be the first one when we run the levels function. Now, if I did this, that wouldn't change the car data function. What I would need to do is rewrite it. So I need to do something like this. Car data underscore data manufacturer is equal to that re-leveled variable. So let's run that. And then if I run car data stays the same, doesn't change. But if we run the levels function now of car data manufacturer, then GM appears first. So what that means is that GM is going to be selected as the base. Alright, so let's run the regression now. Let's call it regression 3. And I'm just going to copy and paste. It's just going to be exactly the same code. So nothing changes in the code if you re-level. But now you can see that we have the manufacturer Ford because the GM was used as a base level. And again, in R, the re-level function calls it reference level. Okay, so in other words, the interpretation is the same. On average, Ford cars have about 1.65 more miles per gallon than GM. I mean, it's exactly what we have here, but with different signs. Okay, so basically that is how we would re-level a a categorical or qualitative variable.